Alright, I'm actually going to be fairly brief with this one. And that's not because there isn't a lot to talk about with the show Arcane, which is the show I'm giving my 2 cents on today. It's because I just don't want to spoil this show for anybody. If you want my really, really short review, so you can move on to watching this show immediately, go watch it. This is an amazing show. Like, I've watched past the first episode at this point, but I'm going to try to sell this show to you by just talking about the first episode alone. Because this might have one of the strongest first episodes of any Netflix show I've ever seen. Like, just the opening teaser sequence of the first episode is a masterclass in storytelling without dialogue. Like, we get such a strong idea of some of the implied history of this world, the dynamics of this world, the situation of our main characters, all without any characters exchanging even a single word of dialogue with each other. It's just looks and animation and beautiful, well, beautifully realized destruction and carnage in the background. Like, the carnage doesn't look particularly beautiful in and of itself, but the animation on it is absolutely spectacular. It looks so visceral. In fact, one of the things I like most about this show is that it is an action-y show. There is, like, parkour-style action and, chase sequences and fights. But the violence isn't really glamorized. Like, it's definitely cool that these characters can do some of the things that they do, that they can pull off some of the things that they can pull off. But the action in this is so raw. Like, it almost makes you feel bad for thinking it looks as cool as it does. And I think that's part of the point. Because, like, I don't know anything about League of Legends. This show's based on League of Legends. I don't know anything at all about League of Legends, and I don't really care to either. Like, I just know that it has, like, some cool backstory elements, and it has some cool character designs. But, like, I don't care enough about the game or the style of game to know much more than that. And, man, if those are the best things about it, then this show really took those things and ran with them. The characters in this are fantastic. Their designs are all just super detailed and super memorable. And the world itself, while it's definitely tropey, it feels super alive and super real very, very quickly. Because, like I talked about that opening teaser sequence, it's these two characters, it's the two main characters, though I'm pretty sure this is going to shift focus on, like, it's going to shift focus to different groups of characters as it progresses. I've watched past the first episode, but I haven't watched that far past the first episode. But the opening sequence is the two main characters, sisters, walking through this scene of carnage, and clearly they've lost their family. And then this guy who finds them clearly takes them in. And we see, like, the main character, Vi, looking back at the destruction and seeing these stormtrooper-esque guys. So clearly they're the ones who did this. And that's all magnificent. We learn so much so quickly. But then moving into the next scene, the first scene after the titles, it's still just as good. The dynamic and environmental storytelling is still just as good. Because now we're following Vi and her sister and two of their friends, and we get to see the group dynamic, which immediately introduces us to these kids and what they're like, but then that feeds back on itself and tells us more about Vi and her sister, and by contrast. And they're participating in a heist that they themselves have arranged, something that the characters are quick to talk about amongst themselves, which tells us immediately that this isn't a thing that they usually do, and they're kind of worried about what the consequences of it might be, but still they're trying to make something of themselves for themselves, so they feel like they have to do this anyway. And just the way they talk about the places that they're going to accomplish this heist tells us that this world is divided into an upper class and a lower class, and then once they return to the lower class area that they live in, the way that people talk about the potential consequences if anyone finds out who did the heist, anyone from the upper class area, which is literally above the lower class area. I liked that. Very unsubtle, but still, cool. Just the way people talk about it, it's clear immediately that there's like politics going on here, that like deals have been made to keep people safe and allow things to happen, because the higher ups, the really, really higher ups, are powerful enough that they can just basically do whatever they want. And that's the kind of world that breaks you and beats you down until you accept the way things are or you die. And it's clear immediately that that's where the main conflict of this show is going to come from. You're going to have these younger characters trying to actually change things in a world where the average person doesn't think you can, and where the most powerful people don't even think that you should. And none of this comes from outright exposition. We are never sat down and straight up told any of this. It's all just inferred from the way the world's laid out, from the literal environment around the characters, and from the way the characters talk to and about each other. Not only that, but the groundwork for extremely complex character dynamics are laid immediately, but simply, and yet nothing feels understated. I feel like I understand these characters and their personalities and their motivations very completely after just one episode, despite the fact that we don't really see much of them individually, because there's a lot of characters already being set up in this thing. Like, I'm really trying not to spoil anything that I don't have to. I know you guys say you don't mind when I spoil stuff, but I really don't want to spoil this one. It's that good. Like, even what seems to be the central plot MacGuffin so far is introduced in such an interesting way and plays such an interesting part into how the characters get to where they are by the end of episode 1, and even feeds into some of their organically growing and changing character dynamics. And like, it's perfectly clear and obvious why these characters get wrapped up in the situation going forward from this. And even like the distinctness of this MacGuffin item, these MacGuffin items make it clear immediately that they are important enough that it makes sense that the people who are reacting so strongly to what happened are reacting as strongly as they are. And like, there's this palpable heavy dread draped over the entire first episode. From the moment you first see these things and one of the characters takes them as part of the heist, I'm like, oh crap, that's not just rich people stuff that they can turn a profit on. That's important. And because the show has done such a good job already of giving the impression of what kind of world this is, it's clear immediately that taking those things is a big deal, that they shouldn't have done that. Like, the episode itself didn't need to tell me that once. It was just obvious. Everything else was icing. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that, like I mentioned, the characters are cool. The characters in this are fantastic. The way the characters look, they tell us a lot about them, first of all, but they're just really well realized animated characters. But I think the real star of this show is the production design, the backgrounds, the way items look, the way objects look, the way places look. There's always something going on in this steampunk-esque, vaguely fantasy, vaguely magical world. Like, you get the sense looking at any still from this show that you could reach in and manipulate anything in the background, that it's all real. It feels so real and lived in. It's absolutely spectacular. Like, I'm going to talk about the characters for a second, but I'm still talking about the environments by doing so. The characters, I don't remember an animated show. Maybe Into the Spider-Verse is one, but I can't think of an animated show or movie where the characters have felt this much like they have real weight to them. Keeping more specific spoilers to just that opening scene as they're gearing up for their heist. As these 4 kids are parkouring their way to their target, there's this one scene that's going to stick with me forever as someone who appreciates animation as much as I do, where they slide down a roof and land on the lip and then use it to leverage themselves onto a balcony so they can leap across a street. And when they fall, you can see the lip of the roof sag. And then when they jump up, you can see it spring back up into place, but not completely, because they've bowed it a little bit. It's just so good. It's so good. Like, let's use Spider-Verse as an example again. This show doesn't seem as stylized as Spider-Verse did. Spider-Verse very much felt like it was trying to evoke a comic book. But man, the animation in this, and like the design for the environments and stuff, and the way the characters interact with the environments in this is on par. And that's such a bonkers thing to say about probably the best looking animated film of all time. I don't know what else to say about this one. I haven't gotten terribly far into it yet, so I don't know how complicated the character dynamics are going to get or where the story is going to go. I've seen a few minor spoilers that imply that I'm really going to like the way things go. It seems like it's going to be super interesting. But, like, I just can't recommend this one enough. I'm speaking gibberish at this point. I'm rambling. I'm stammering through my words because I don't want to tell you more, but I want to tell you more. Because you guys need to experience this for yourselves. Like, you need to experience it, and I want you to experience it, even if I have to tell you about it, but you need to experience it for yourselves. Like, find the time and go give this show a shot. I promise you will not be disappointed. I'm going to stop there, because I'm feeling real tempted now to start talking about episode 2, but I don't think I need to. Just go watch the show. So, as per usual, guys, this is my 2 cents on Arcane and League of Legends. What did you guys think of it if you have seen it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, but please keep spoilers below the break if possible. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else who you think would enjoy my content, subscribe. If you haven't, you'd also check out links to my various social medias, as well as the many ways you can help out the channel. Those will be in the video description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.